Here we are again with another quick math with Mr. Evans session. And today, parents, I have a doozy for you. Now, as we get ready to prepare for this, I know you may not be super excited with the method I'm getting ready to show you because, once again, we're talking about that concept of number sense and how we were taught. We were always taught that standard algorithm. And, parents, you're much more comfortable with that. And I totally understand. I totally get it. But hopefully today, with the lesson that Mr. Evans does with you very quickly, you will be able to understand why we are utilizing this method with your students to help prepare them and become, better mathematicians that understand numbers. So you see here, I have the standard written down here for your students that they are expected to have by the end of fourth grade of find whole number quotients and remainders with up to 4-digit dividends and a 1-digit divisor. So to be respectful to the creed of what we're doing today, I will make sure that I go up to a 4-digit dividend and have a 1-digit divisor. So let's go ahead and jump right on into it. So we're going to do today, let's pick a bigger number because your students always love it when Mr. Evans does a huge number. We'll go 6,349. And so we'll just keep that random because, we always want to make sure that there's a possibility for us to get remainders, or sometimes, we just get lucky and make sure and we don't have a remainder. So we're going to divide that by a 1-digit divisor of, let's pick the number 4, Mr. Evans. I like the number 4 right now. So let's go with that. So what your students immediately do after that, I'm going to slide on up so that we have some room here today to see. You all know that this is quick math from Mr. Evans, so you haven't lost that facet. So what your students are doing in class is that they are rewriting that problem after I presented it horizontally as 6,349. They draw themselves a nice little house around it, but then they draw this nice little stem that comes down. And parents, this is what I call the Big 7 method. It is, you can look it up on various different Google searches, and you'll find this method is being used around a lot of places to help kids understand how to do division. So we're going to be looking at this here, and of course, we're going to write our 4 out here. This is what you're used to. This, the dividend being on the inside of the house and our divisor being on the outside of the house. But today we're going to be looking at this, and it's really to help kids understand that all this is repeated subtraction. And so their goal every time is the language that I use is let's come up with a number off to the side over here that we can multiply 4 by and, get this number down as largely as possible. So we're looking at 6,349, and my goal is to shrink that number as much as possible. And so naturally, your students know how to, multiply by 4. So we initially start off with a number that we like. And most times I always say, let's start with 1. And in this case, it's a great number to start with because we'll say 4 times 1 equals 4. But we want this to be like 4,000 because we're trying to take this large value of 6,349 and shrink it and get it as low as we possibly can. So I asked them how many zeros remain in there for us to fill in. And they go, oh, well, there's 3 zeros there, Mr. Evans. Well, then they know to put 3 zeros here to the outside because now they're doing 4 times 1,000, which would give them 4,000. Now it's time to do some subtraction because, like I said, we're trying to shrink this number to the lowest number we possibly can get. But right now, let's, take it as in baby steps, if you want to call it that way. But, this is manageable for your students. So we bring those numbers down because 9 minus 0 is 0. 4 minus 0, you got 3 minus 0. And now we get to 6 minus 4, which is 2. So now we're looking at 2,349. Now, naturally, your students are looking like, oh, well, Mr. Evans, can we do 1,000 again? And I ask them, I say, well, is 4,000 less than 2,349? They're like, no. So I say, well, the obvious answer here is what? No. So we look at this now and we say, well, since we don't like, the 2 that's there, let's take a look at this and let's look at it as if it was 23. Do we like multiplying 4 by something to get really close to 23 without going over? And then your students kind of go, well, yeah, Mr. Evans, we know 4 times 4 gives us 16. And I say, well, push your mind a little bit. And they go, well, 4 times 5. And I say, well, I like that, don't you? And they say, well, yeah, Mr. Evans, we like that. So we say we like 4 times 5, and that's going to give us 20. And then I ask them how many zeros still remain for us to fill in. They say 2 more. And so since they filled in 2 more, they put 2 more zeros onto that 5, and now they see 500. So now we do our subtraction, and you see that once we do that, we're down to 349. So now the kids are like, "Ooh, yeah, we're getting somewhere now, Mr. Evans." And so we're looking back at that 3 there, and I'm like, you know what, guys, I still don't like that because I can't go like 4 times 1 and be able to subtract like 400. That's just not going to work out for me. So let's look at it as if it was 34. And so your kid's mind starts turning like, okay, 4 times something that'll get me close to 34. And then naturally your kids are going, oh, Mr. Evans, I figured it out. And I'm like, what is it? They're going, well, we need to use 8, Mr. Evans. And I say, oh, well, that's great. What's 4 times 8 going to give us? They say 32, Mr. Evans. And I say, well, what else do we need to do? We need to add a 0. And I'm like, fabulous. So we need to add that 0 not only there, but where else? Next to the 8. And I'm like, great job. Wonderful job. So they get that 8 there. And now we're looking at 80. And then, of course, they do their subtraction. So they have here the 9 that comes down, and then 4 minus 2. Then now they're looking at just simply 29. I apologize for that kick there of the table. We have to extend our problem with a little bit more additional paper. So we get them there to that point when they're looking at that 29, and they're thinking, their mind's churning, and they're saying, is there something, Mr. Evans, we can multiply times 4 to get that 29 down as low as we possibly can? And your students are going, yes, Mr. Evans, we figured it out. And I go, well, what is it, ladies and gentlemen? What did you just figure out? What is it that's going to help us solve this problem and finish it up appropriately? And they yell out, 7! So of course, you're writing the 7 here off to the side, and I'm saying, class, what is 4 times 7? They're going 28. So we do the subtraction there, and now we have 1. And this is how they typically know that this is going to be our remainder, because if we can't really subtract 4 from that number, then that's pretty much all we can do now. So since we can't go really 4 minus 1 and get, we can get a negative number, but they don't know about that yet. But we can't really do that 4 minus 1, so they know immediately this is going to be our remainder. So they put an R there equals 1. And so now to find out what their quotient is, your students are adding these numbers up over here off to the right. And it's still similar to what you guys learned with the standard algorithm of the numbers going above the house. But over here off to the side, it allows them to keep some uniformity of what we've been doing in class with number sets. And they can look at this and go 1,587. So that is their quotient for this particular problem. And their remainder is 1. Ladies and gentlemen, that is dividend divisors, 4-digit dividends by a 1-digit divisor, utilizing the Big 7 method. Your students love this and they are very productive with it. So hopefully I've done enough with you today that will help you become comfortable with it and create problems with your student at home, because that's the best way to continue to get good at math, is to just push yourself and challenge yourself and do as many problems as possible. Thank you for your time today, and I look forward to see you in one of the upcoming videos by Mr. Evans with Quick Math.